70%, 80%, 90%, 99%, 100%. Congratulations to the host for completing the sign-in at Broadway, and the Cybertron Master System has been activated. From this moment on, the host is the supreme god of Cybertron. Building Cybertron and creating the shape-shifting King Kong tribe with infinite multi-universe battles will be your ultimate mission. Congratulations to the host for signing in for the first time and receiving a reward. The unique artifact Fire Source. Activating, All Earth Mechanical Proficiency. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the title, Walking Mechanical Natural Disaster. This title is a lifetime binding. However, all mechanical bodies that are activated by the host with a fire source have all attributes increased by 20%. Martin drove an old Beetle car, and he was immediately relieved when he saw the light curtain that came to his mind. Finally, it was a success, and it was worthwhile that I walked repeatedly on Broadway for an hour before I completed my first sign-in and activated the Cybertron system. Martin sighed, and at the same time a little helpless. He drove the car around this Broadway repeatedly, so that he was caught by the local police on duty, and looked suspiciously at him from time to time. But it's all worth it. Cybertron's Star Master System, the title of Walking Mechanical Natural Disaster, will accompany him for a lifetime. It can also be regarded as a dangerous world where villains are walking everywhere and star-smashing bosses rushing across the universe with one punch. The power of self-preservation. When Martin moved his heart, a strange black cube appeared in his palm. This is the source of fire that condensed a large number of life rules and creation rules. At this moment, he is lying quietly on the palm of his hand, connected with his blood, and connected with him. Martin is just after a moment of enlightenment. You will understand that this thing has long been bound to him, and no one can take it away. As long as he wants to, he can activate this super artifact of the source of life in an instant, quickly grow it, and control the countless machinery around him. This kind of super induction of machinery, everything can be easily interpreted by my brain. Martin looked shocked. He could feel the millions of machinery around him, ranging from mobile phones and watches to automobile machine tools. There is no secret in front of him. As long as he wants, he can use the fire source to turn these countless machines into a war machine that can participate in battle in an instant. At this moment, Martin has a deeper understanding and comprehension of the lifetime binding title of Walking Mechanical Natural Disaster. How many file-size machines are there in bustling New York City? What about the world? What about the whole universe? No civilization can be separated from mechanical creations, and as long as he wants to, he can pull up millions of mechanical legions on the spot and wipe out all enemies forcibly. And not only the machinery used in life, even the weapons produced in the arsenal are also machinery. Firearms, armored vehicle, tank, airplane, aircraft carrier, spacecraft. As long as it is a machine, it belongs to him. As long as it is a machine, Martin naturally has the highest authority. This is the real Lord of Cybertron, a walking mechanical natural disaster. With this ability, I really have a firm foothold in this Marvel universe. Sooner or later, I will build the planet Cybertron with one hand, and create a super shape-shifting King Kong group that can rampant multi-universe with the other. Martin's heart was surging, and when he moved his heart, there was a cheap watch on the fire source immediately shining on his wrist. In an instant, the watch started spontaneously. After dazzling changes, countless parts rotated, and immediately there was a miniature watch. The shape-shifting King Kong change is completed. This small shape-shifting diamond is lying on the steering wheel, and the mechanical arms are undergoing complex changes. Sometimes small guns are assembled, and sometimes electric drills and electric welding torches are changed. Although small in size, this is clearly a killing weapon. At this moment, the long line of traffic jams in front suddenly burst into noise, and then there was a terrible explosion. Boom! Several cars, like toys, were kicked flying by a 5-meter-high monster with dim skin. This monster was standing on the street, listening to countless screams with enjoyment on his face, and after making a harsh roar, he began to wreak havoc. With every punch, a solid car could be crushed by him, together with the inside. The people were also crushed to death. Suddenly, there was chaos, and countless screams sounded. "Help, there are monsters here. Don't kill me, please don't kill me. I have a lot of money, and I can give it to you." The monster showed an ugly grin and kicked a screaming passerby into the air. "I am the god of this world. This infinite power can truly be worthy of me," he yelled. Martin looked at the ugly big guy from a distance with a look of surprise. "This guy is an abomination." Martin shook his head, glanced from a distance, and exclaimed, "What a guy, he looks really ugly." At this time, discover the soul of sin. To capture this soul, you can activate the Decepticon in the fire source and unlock the Decepticon leader Megatron. The bustling city is full of ruins. High-rise buildings are in dilapidated state. Vehicles are scattered. Many people are shivering under the car, praying for the protection of the gods. The surviving street lights on the street kept flashing, seeming to try to release the last light in the chaos, which indeed gave the survivors a little comfort. The army also arrived in time, and a large number of armed helicopters flew around. Martin saw a figure jumping off the helicopter and immediately turned into a big green guy. But this big guy didn't seem to be very clear-headed, and he was staggering when he walked. This is because the effect of the transformation inhibitor he injected himself has not dissipated. Ironically, Dr. Banner hates Hulk and does everything possible to destroy Hulk. Unexpectedly, the military led by General Ross coveted Hulk's power. Eventually a soldier named Brunsky was injected with Hulk's blood and became his current hatred. In order to eliminate hatred, Dr. Banner had to use the power of Hulk. I saw the Hulk yelling and beating his head at the same time, as if he wanted to make his consciousness clearer. Disgust rushed over for the first time. The blood-stained ugly eyes revealed jealousy and viciousness. He punched Hulk severely, knocked him to the ground, and roared triumphantly. The battle between two rough-skinned monsters on the streets of Broadway was simply a huge amount of disaster. No one can withstand the attack of these two monsters that can hit hundreds of tons of power with a random punch. In this city center, the army does not dare to use heavy weapons, otherwise they are waiting for them to go to a military court. Attention, everyone, you can only strike at a long distance, never get close. Repeat, never get close. General Ross gave orders, his expression ugly to the extreme. A monster of this kind of power, picking up a car on the ground and throwing it over, is comparable to a missile and can easily shoot down an armed helicopter. He pursued Hulk hard, trying to replicate the power of Hulk a lot, and then strengthen the power of his faction, but the result was the birth of hatred, and the flood of media made him lose face. Disgust hit Hulk again, generating a terrifying soundwave. Hulk was knocked out on the spot, blasting through several tall buildings. Hulk, once I admired you, but after I gained your power, I found that you are so weak and ridiculous. Disgust grabbed Hulk by the neck, lifted him up, leaned over, opened his blood basin and screamed, with a condescending sense of superiority. Nothing makes him more happy than this. He grabbed a car by the side of the road, and regardless of the screaming family inside, he was about to smash the car at Hulk's head. God, who will save them? This demon will definitely go to hell. The crowd in the distance shivered, screamed in horror, and covered their eyes, so they didn't dare to look at it. They almost saw the tragic scene happen. The parents in the car, as well as the child, were going to die together. Don't worry, Parker, close your eyes and pray. The woman in the car covered the child's eyes, and although she was shaking, she still tried her best to comfort him. Seeing the car that had been pinched to shapeshifting by hatred was about to crash on Hulk's head, and the three people inside were about to die. But at this moment, in an instant, accompanied by the changing sounds of a large number of mechanical parts appearing nearby, a tall figure suddenly rushed out. The whole body was shining with metal light. This big guy stretched out his mechanical arm and hit the head of Abomination with a punch. The terrifying force even made the metal fist dent. As Abomination staggered back and unconsciously released the car, he grabbed his hateful wrist in one hand, and then stopped suddenly on the spot, and there was a slammed shoulder. The 5-meter-high Abomination was smashed into the ground on the spot by this mechanical body that appeared suddenly. This sudden change shocked countless people, and more people watched this scene blankly through the live broadcast of the media, watching this mechanical body standing in the middle of the road like a god of war, in front of him for a few seconds. The Abomination of the past. The car that crashed was about to land from a high altitude, causing a tragedy. At this moment, the family car suddenly made a sharp noise, and suddenly, as if it had come alive, began the extremely complex shapeshifting, turning it into a 3-meter-tall robot. In a short moment, 2 deterrent shapeshifting King Kong appeared on the battlefield. This shapeshifting King Kong, which is formed by the shapeshifting of a small car, immediately reached out and grabbed the 3 people in the car gently in time, and placed it carefully on the ground. This big mechanical man made a cautious move, which was a little funny, but no one laughed at this moment, but looked at it with extremely shocking eyes, and the eye sockets were a little moist. This kind of strong contrast would only make this big man. The figure becomes more stalwart. Thank you, sir, you saved us, thank you. Aunt May hugged Parker tightly, tears rolling in. She raised her head laboriously, looking at the robot who was looking down at them with wide-eyed eyes, speaking incoherently. Ben's forehead was bleeding, and he opened his mouth to say something, but soon passed out. The boy who was hiding in Aunt May's arms looked at him with wide eyes. There was no panic in his pupils, but a bright light appeared. "Are you my Asgardian?" Parker's eyes were bright, looking at the huge robot that his car had turned into on the spot. Not only did he feel no fear, but a strong sense of intimacy. The shape-shifting King Kong didn't say anything, but tilted his head, then turned around and waited for the defeated abomination. Everyone was stunned by this scene, watching with shock, staring blankly, shocked. "Look, who is that person? Is he crazy and actually drove the car into the battlefield?" Someone suddenly yelled. A slightly dilapidated beetle car, at the moment, was moving slowly, without any rush or slowness. The vehicle blocking the front unexpectedly moved aside spontaneously, giving way to the wide road. "It's like a miracle. Originally I didn't intend to care about this mess, but you treat cars that don't belong to you in such a rude way and with a purely entertaining mentality. This is a problem." The door of this beetle opened slowly, and the spotlights of numerous helicopters immediately gathered, as if they were shining on the truth of the world. Numerous media reporters even opened their eyes wide, red-eyed, and pressed the shutter madly. Martin walked out of the car slowly, stepped on the ground covered with dust and blood, and solemnly adjusted the tie on his chest. Originally, in order to welcome this first sign-in, he deliberately dressed up for a long time before going out, especially washing that face over and over again. The tall figure, the burly physique, and the square and majestic face. A pair of slightly calm eyes keep turning, and everyone who is seen by this gaze will show embarrassment. 2 huge amounts of robots came with heavy steps, one on the left and the other standing beside Martin, like 2 giants lifting the sky. Immediately bursts of uproar erupted from the crowd. Who is this person? A new superhero. Can control the vehicle for shapeshifting. Countless people looked over, their faces shocked. They saw everything just now. They turned 2 ordinary vehicles into powerful war weapons in that instant, and they suppressed the crazy monster in an instant. Martin stood in the middle of Broadway with a look of embarrassment. Countless lights gathered, and was seen by people all over the world. At this moment, he had a little helplessness on his face. "I didn't intend to participate, but who will let you have what I need?" Martin sighed, looked at the disgust that rage got up, and shrugged. "Damn it. Where are you, the ghost? Wanna knock me down with these 2 big toys?" A cry of disgust and irritability. Martin covered his ears, rubbed his neck as he lifted it, and said lightly, "You can't be defeated by these 2, how about 200,000? As soon as the voice fell, Martin stretched out his arms. In an instant, countless machines were perception and activated by his fire source. With the changing sounds of the parts, the entire New York City seemed to become a mechanical city, with countless changes. After the crazy shapeshifting, the machinery is swarming. Shocks broke out, everyone was shocked. "This is my car, why did it suddenly become a robot and ran away?" "Phone. My phone. This camera is the property of the company, it was bought by the company." In an instant, 200,000 shape-shifting King Kong roars, which had just been activated, came roaring. Every tall building, every building, was covered with a large number of war weapons, overlooking everything from a condescending position. More are coming and will be hated. Tuan surrounded the center. This Broadway seemed to have become a mechanical fortress in an instant. Disgusted and looked up in a daze, stunned by the sudden increase in the number, But immediately he slammed a fist to the ground, and roared. This kind of rubbish, no matter how much it comes, it's useless. My strength is endless. Martin shook his head. Even Hulk's normal strength is only 100 tons, and it will only soar when it is a long-time rage. You, a boring defective product, dare to say endless. 200,000 shape-shifting diamonds are not enough. What about 2 million? His voice passed through countless noises, continuously passed out, and passed on to all parts of the world through the camera. Everyone looked dull, with wide-eyed eyes, and countless horrors rose in their hearts. The 200,000 war machine is still not the limit of this man? Where is his limit? Rumble. The little half of New York City is shaking. Countless mechanical bodies are madly transforming into war weapons after another. Even the gunships in the distance began to be out of control, rudely throwing many soldiers down, and then flying towards Broadway in the direction of hoisting, and suddenly, as it approached, shapeshifting becomes a huge shapeshifting King Kong. 2 million shapeshifting King Kong came over the sky, filling everything up, and the entire city became a mechanical city. Those cold and ruthless eyes looked at the hatred, completely frightening the hatred. Abomination, your power is too strong, you need to be restricted by me. Martin whispered. Those eyes that looked past, but with a strong desire, waved his hand on the spot, and the 2 million steel torrent immediately rushed to hatred. This is the real torrent of steel. What kind of tanks and armored vehicles are so weak? He hates red eyes. Before he can speak, he has been overwhelmed by a large number of war weapons. Only when he can utter the last curse, he is completely overwhelmed by the endless shape-shifting diamonds. His body has also been torn by the shape-shifting diamonds. Become fragments. Not to mention, Martin also directly ordered these shape-shifting diamonds to spray out a lot of flames to completely bake the abominable remains, so as not to be taken away by the military to do something. Originally, you could directly let these shape-shifting diamonds wash the ground with firepower, and use a lot of heavy weapons to kill this guy in place, but considering that this is the city center, you don't do this. You can treat this as my treatment to you. Kindness. Martin looked at the abhorrence that had turned to dust, with a faint smile on his face. Die. As the master of Cybertron, you have the highest control over all the shape-shifting diamonds you create. No shape-shifting diamond can go against the will of the host. Any shape-shifting diamond will have permanent loyalty to the host. 100. Please build a base as soon as possible, and sign in at the base. Martin listened to the voice in his head, and the smile on his face magnified again. Coupled with his handsome face, this smile has been seen by countless people through the media. Seeing this smile, people all over the world immediately felt a warm current rise in their hearts. This smile blooming in the middle of the disaster is so reassuring. At this moment, countless people have never heard of this superhero. Created a good impression. His smile is so beautiful. Like Jesus, in the face of suffering, always treat with optimism and tolerance. Martin glanced back and looked at the sluggish military. He just waved his hand, then slowly sat on his beetle, started the engine, and drove away slowly. Countless war weapons made way for him, and immediately, as if they had received an order at the same time, they immediately dispersed, returned to their proper position, and changed their original appearance again. But no one would think that these big guys are really back to their original state. Everyone knows that as long as the man gives an order, these will once again become weapons of war, sweeping all enemies in front of that man. In technological civilization, this kind of ability is God at all. For the controllers of some major forces, this is even more a living mechanical natural disaster. Everything seemed as if the dust had settled down. The survivors looked around in confusion, silently licking the wounds after the disaster. Some people who had lost their loved ones were crying silently in the ruins, and more people knelt down and spoke in their mouths. With words, Martin has been regarded as a faith-like existence. In their opinion, they control millions of mechanical soldiers instantly, and this is not necessarily the limit. What is this, not a god? The god of machinery. Countless forces and departments have held emergency meetings. Everyone has a dignified look. They are in a high position and have a more long-term vision. They are all too aware of the horror of an existence like Martin in modern society. This is even better than anyone. The impact of superhero or super criminal is even greater. One man becomes an army, and the army is endless, but they have no way to limit Martin. At the global secret meeting, Nick Fury looked serious and said solemnly, "Ladies and gentlemen, there is no doubt that this person is the most special ability we have faced in the history of the Earth. Throughout the entire history of mankind, no matter what crises human beings face, they have enough courage and determination to deal with it. Even Apocalypse, which awakened from ancient Egypt in the last century, was eventually buried again under the efforts of various parties, but this one. At present, we don't know where the upper limit of his violent soldiers is, but it's definitely not just 2 million. Then comprehensively evaluate the transformation speed of these shapeshifting robots, from ordinary mechanical artifacts to war weapons. It only takes a few seconds. He alone has the ability to severely injure human civilization, but we lack effective means against him. Even if a nuclear bomb is dropped, a nuclear bomb must be launched mechanically. Isn't the nuclear bomb originally a sophisticated and complicated giant mechanical device? As long as it is a machine, it belongs to Martin, and Martin has the highest authority. So I propose that to speed up the formation of the Special Operations Team, we need to have our own super ability team." Nick Fury's single eye is full of energy. Hydra Base. Mrs. Viper turned off the TV, was silent for a moment, and suddenly smiled. "I want to find a way to contact this person, we need him for the cause of ruling the world." A steel island in the Atlantic Ocean. Magneto slowly opened his eyes and stopped controlling the magnetic field. He had received countless electromagnetic waves by controlling the Earth's magnetic field. Knowing what was happening, he immediately said, "The elites of Brotherhood must gather immediately. Let's go to New York. If so, those politicians dare to stop us, let's go in. Martin is likely to be mutant, and a level 4 mutant. We need to bring him closer to Brotherhood." No one is more eager to get Martin than Magneto. He really needs a 4th level mutant as his successor. Looking at the entire Brotherhood, he was satisfied. He was able to take over the 4th level mutant of Brotherhood's dominance. It really didn't. Definitely, he wouldn't know that his daughter Scarlet Witch also has terrible potential. The whole Earth was shaken by Martin, and countless forces held emergency meetings to think about countermeasures. Even on the moon, those alien races who have moved away from the Earth and migrated to the moon can hardly be calm. Their most powerful leader, whose strength surpassed the leader of level 4 and level sub-Godfather, the Black Bat King who barely stepped into the level Godfather but was low-key, also looked at the Earth at this moment and fell into a long silence. Martin had expected the waves he caused, but he didn't care about it. After all, his future would be the whole vast and endless multi-universe, clashing with countless ancient gods and powerful races. The slight vibrations caused on the Earth are really nothing. Megatron, the supreme leader of the Decepticon camp, a legendary soldier, bloody and brutal. Martin drove his beetle slowly along the way. Anyone who planned to follow along the way, Martin just moved his mind and activated all the machinery they carried, and then forcibly took them in the opposite direction. He just doesn't like being stared at. All the way back home. The first floor is the garage and the second floor is the residence. This is Martin's home, a perfect combination of life and work. The door closed with a slam. Martin closed his eyes and began to summon Megatron. I saw a black cube immediately appeared in the palm of the hand, and after bursts of mechanical sounds, it shone brightly, and a figure immediately appeared in the garage. The figure is extremely tall, about 10 meters above and below. The silver color of the whole body exudes mystery and nobility, and the protruding edges of the body are sharp and exudes cold light. In those red eyes that opened slowly, a powerful flow of information flashed by, and a strong smell of blood spread over the surface. Open black lens bracket Megatron close black lens bracket open black lens bracket Decepticon Legion. Leader, close black lens bracket. Character, cold-blooded, decision ability plus 30%. Height, 10 meters, energy, 10 million, open black lens bracket body, healthy close black lens bracket. Strength, level 4, famous saying, Decepticons, attack, close black lens bracket. Evaluation. The master of the Decepticon Legion, the supreme faith of the Decepticons of King Kong. The cold-blooded character gives him super decisive ability, and he can always abandon emotional entanglements and make judgments to maximize profits. Close black lens bracket. Martin looked at this big man, and all the information about Megatron appeared in his mind. This information can even be precise to the health of each screw. Megatron slowly stood on the spot, lowered his head. The moment he saw Martin, the red electronic eyes lit up. The strong malice and bloodthirsty immediately converged, and he knelt on one knee on the spot. My creator, Megatron is willing to offer you all his loyalty. It is my lifelong dream to execute your orders definitely, if possible. I actually prefer to lead a legion to act independently. Very good, Megatron. Martin looked at this giant shape-shifting King Kong, which is called a work of art, with a look of surprise. I have to say that Megatron's appearance is really too strong. The flowing body is naturally a weapon of war, and every arc is in line with it. The most perfect body engineering. Megatron, born to kill, there will never be peace and tranquility at his feet, only endless blood and wailing. Martin walked around Megatron, let out a sigh, and then asks, Megatron, do you know Optimus Prime? Optimus Prime? There is a record of him in the data of my brain. Although I haven't met him, according to these information, he is a very annoying guy. He always talks about some boring fraternity and equality. Megatron knocked his head with a loud bang, and recalled relevant information about Optimus Prime from the memory organ, with a trace of contempt on his face. The most important thing is that this guy named Optimus Prime was born in the civilian shape-shifting King Kong. He is thin and weak at first sight. Megatron looked disdainful. That's right, Optimus Prime, who is 10 meters in height, is indeed a short man compared to Megatron, who is 10 meters in height. In other words, the major shape-shifting diamonds of the Decepticons are all military shape-shifting diamonds, tanks, bombers, etc., generally burly and tall. At this time, in the dead of night, there was a knock on the door. Martin turned his head to look and smiled. In fact, he had already noticed that there were guests visiting. Besides, in this modern city, even if it was as large as New York City, he knew it well, and that countless machines were his best surveillance system. He shook his head right now. This person was able to come to him so decisively, it was beyond his expectation. Martin snapped his fingers, and the door opened spontaneously, and a slightly shrunken figure walked in slowly, his face full of shaggy beard, looking extremely vicissitudes, and a trace of tension and expectation in his decadent eyes. On this man's wrist, a small shape-shifting King Kong jumped down, brought Banner here, and his mission was completed. Dr. Banner, welcome, I didn't expect you to come to me so soon. Martin opened his arms and smiled on his face, as if he was facing an old friend he hadn't seen for many years. In fact, he knew Hulk very well through movies and anime from previous lives. Dr. Banner scratched his head. Oh, it took me a while to get rid of the military's tracking. I'm sorry to disturb you so late. You just quelled a disaster. You should have a good rest, but I can't. He walked in, looked at the 10-meter-high silver man, and was stunned. This body shape was too shocking, and more importantly, he saw this red-eyed mechanical body facing him. There was a creepy smile. As for some brothers who proposed Magneto shape-shifting King Kong, in fact, don't worry too much. Marvel once released an official comic, Avengers vs. Shape-Shifting King Kong, which can be used as a reference. Yes, the anti-shape-shifting King Kong armor of Iron Man's many anti-XX armors appeared in this comic. According to this comic, the life magnetic field of shape-shifting King Kong is very special. Therefore, it has certain resistance to Magneto's magnetic control ability and will not be completely overcome. Close black lens bracket. Your vital signs are very interesting, but there is an abnormal energy response in your weak body. Megatron's eyes turned, and with just one scan, Dr. Banner had almost no secrets. This is the scary thing about shape-shifting King Kong. Any shape-shifting King Kong, even the small ones transformed from mobile phones and watches, is a killer weapon, but it has an advantage in modern cities. Hacking technology is at full level and crawling technology. At full level, the efficiency of collecting information is at full level. At the level of Megatron, it was even more terrifying. Dr. Banner looked shocked. You can talk? Martin covered his face and said helplessly, Bruce, can I just call you that? Every shape-shifting King Kong the first create is not a rigid robot, but a real mechanical life. What? How did you do it? The direct conversion of machinery into life has broken the code of life, and it is also a cross-species breakthrough. Dr. Banner flushed, his face was shocked, and he opened his mouth to tell a lot of scientific theories. He was originally a military scientific researcher specializing in biology. Megatron stepped directly out, and the whole house shook, making him shut up. Bruce, tell me the purpose of your coming to me. You are the first person to come to me. Martin poured 2 cups of coffee and handed one of them to Banner. I hope you can help me. Only you have ability to control this monster in my body. Only you can. If you can kill Abomination, then ability must control me, even the ability that killed me. There are also. Dr. Banner looked frustrated and desperate. Martin drank his coffee quietly, without responding immediately. Hulk hasn't been born long now. To put it bluntly, he is just a little baby. He has a grumpy temperament and has no idea of right and wrong. He does everything by preference without logic. It's easy to change this situation. Take time to boil, or beat half to death. You are afraid of him, Bruce. I don't expect you to defeat him, but you shouldn't be afraid, it will only make you weak. Martin sighed, pointed to his forehead, and said, you also know that this monster you think will explode when stimulated. Your fear will only become an opportunity for him to keep appearing. No, you don't understand this feeling. Every night, he is roaring at me. Dr. Banner held his head in pain, and his heart beat wildly when he thought of the pain. Especially since he had just fought hatred on the streets of New York, which indirectly killed many people, and hatred was born because of him. Thinking about it this way, the guilt and despair are even more intense. Unconsciously, his heart beats. The ground was getting faster and faster, and a green light gradually appeared on the skin. Hulk is gradually replacing him. Martin shrugged, holding his coffee, taking a calm step back, and commanded, Megatron, leave it to you. As long as you can't kill you, you will fight to death. This opponent is quite special. Megatron showed a hideous smile on his face, eager to try, walked directly in front of Banner, sneered again and again. Ouch! There was a low roar, and Dr. Banner's jacket began to crack and his figure swelled sharply. After a few seconds, he turned into a 5-meter-high green block with anger and irritability on his face. Hulk, go online. Roar! Hulk looked up and saw Megatron. Even though he was too bad in size, he still didn't have any fear. Now he doesn't know what fear is. His brain is full of anger, and he rushes towards Megatron with a roar. Interesting. Megatron's face was hideous, and the electronic eyeballs turned, and all of Hulk's movements were instantly captured. At the same time, the powerful brain calculated countless attack modes in an instant, and the strong mechanical arm was mobilized and punched out fiercely. Boom! With a deafening noise, Hulk had already flown out like a cannonball and hit the ground hard. The power is good, except for the power, it's no different from rubbish. Megatron sneered again and again. Martin sighed and took a step back. According to the memory of previous lives, Hulk's normal power is only 100 tons, which seems to be very high, because Spider-Man's power is only 20 tons. But in the entire universe or even the entire multi-universe, this start is really low. Fortunately, the greater the anger, the greater the strength, and he can grow to the point where he can smash a star with one punch. This is a bit worth seeing. And now Megatron's power is probably 5 million tons or 8 million tons. A little better than Superman Clark, who didn't open the door next door. Megatron is a level 4 life form. It is unrealistic to break the stars with one punch, but taking some time to destroy a few super cities is just like playing. Hulk crawled out of the pit and shook his head, a little stunned, but he roared and became even more angry. The power index instantly skyrocketed to 10 times, which is 1,000 tons. This is amazing. Hulk felt his own powerful strength and was confident, and immediately rushed up with a vigorous step, picked up the big fist of the sandbag, and thumped it. But Megatron caught the punch easily. His body was motionless, and he was half bent, looking down at this little green thing like a child overlooking. The coldness on his face suddenly enlarged. Boom! 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 Megatron punched and hit Hulk in the chest with a single blow. This pair of ordinary punches with the ultimate grasp of strength sank Hulk's chest on the spot. The bones, which are harder than the secondary adamantium alloy, were unexpectedly hit. Life is broken. Hulk let out a miserable cry, his eyes widened, and he staggered back a few steps, then knelt down with a bang, panting, his anger, more emotion than ever before. Shock. Megatron walked over, acting extremely relaxed and casual. Hulk barely got up, getting more angry, his roaring sound reverberated through the nearby streets, his eyes were bloodshot, his muscles swelled again, and he rushed towards Megatron. Stupid, you don't even give yourself time to rely on anger to increase your strength. Megatron sneered, and easily analyzed all the attack of Hulk, and punched them one after another. Each punch was enough to easily collapse a kilometer-high building. Every time he punched, Hulk's figure could be damaged. He didn't even use the shape-shifting ability to create weapons and firearms. Just like an old boxer, relying on two fists, frequently shot Hulk. After several sets of combined punches, Hulk was bruised and scarred. In the end, he stepped out with one hand, grabbed Hulk's neck and raised it high, and then slammed it into the ground fiercely. Hulk was covered in blood, his upper body was deformed with a heavy fist, lying on the ground unconscious. It's miserable, it's just a one-sided sling. Martin drank the coffee in his cup and sighed. This guy is too weak. The only thing that needs attention is that this guy's anger doesn't know where it comes from, and I don't know where the growth limit is. Megatron snorted coldly, looking down at the unconsciousness that was beaten by him. The green guy had a face of disdain. Martin smiled. Don't underestimate this guy, Megatron. If you give him enough time and excitement, he can really become terrifying. Generally speaking, in order to smash the star with a punch, in addition to some special fourth-level beings, one must go further and have the strength of the level sub-godfather, that is, the level of the normal Thanos. As far as Hulk's potential is concerned, level sub-godfather is really nothing. According to comic memories in previous lives, the strongest form of Hulk is Oba Hulk, which directly originated from the opposite of OAA, above everything, Oba below everything, and its potential is simply unpredictable. Once again, the four-handed Hulk at the first level, considering that it can kill 7 observers from afar in one hit, it is not an exaggeration to evaluate it as a more powerful level godfather. Further down, it is the captain of the universe Hulk and Lashang Hulk, level sub-godfather, the level of breaking a star with one punch. And Megatron. Martin turned his head and took a look at the Decepticon leader. Level 4 lifeforms, even with the super racial advantage of mechanical life, can do many things that level 4 life can't do, but after all, they can't reach level in combat power. Sub-Godfather can only be limited to one planet. With the passage of time, this movement is gradually fermenting out. Many agents who have been lurking outside Martin's house have serious faces and are a little surprised. They don't know what happened, but only saw the dangerous person Dr. Banner walk in. Then there were terrible sounds and roars, which seemed to be screaming. As early as Martin appeared in countless spotlights and controlled 2 million shapeshifting King Kong to siege Abomination, the horror and ability he showed made a sensation in the whole world. Such Martin is somewhat better than Magneto, and Professor X level 4 mutant is even more terrible. One man becomes an army, and the army is endless. This is also the result of Martin deliberately showing his muscles in order to avoid some trouble. Countless forces are negotiating urgently, but this night, Martin slept extremely peacefully, protected by Megatron and countless lurking shape-shifting King Kong around him. Everything was extremely safe. So, you want me to lead this project so that I can work out the principle of this kind of ability? Hey, man, you have to be clear that some super ability can't figure out the principle. If he is mutant, it is a big problem. If he is not mutant, then this ability is an unsolvable problem. Tony Stark held a bottle of treasure for a long time and poured it on himself carelessly, but the solemnity of his eyes revealed a little different emotions. Nick Fury glared at his vicious one-eyed, looking at the bohemian prodigal son, saying that compared to this guy before the accident in the Middle East, his personality has changed a lot, otherwise it would be even worse. S.H.I.E.L.D. is to maintain peace in the world, and the existence of this guy has seriously threatened the inherently fragile balance of this world. We urgently need to understand everything about this person, not only his preferences, character, ideals, but also find out the means to counter him. Just as he used to restrict the two major factions of mutant, he used emotion, morality, and empty and beautiful prospects to bind Professor X. Then he used Professor X and some seemingly hard work but not very useful actions to care for the weak mutant to restrict Magneto. No one knows the horror of these two 4-level mutants better than Fury. Professor X wears a brainwave amplifier and can wipe out half of the Earth's humans in an instant. Magneto can control the Earth's magnetic field, and desperately can turn the Earth upside down and make the North and South poles switch positions. No matter which one of them takes action, they can bring an extinct disaster to the Earth. This is the 4th-level life form. It is so powerful that no one dares to tear its face with them. It really tears its face. Even if it wins, it is useless. People can drag human civilization to death. But now, this man named Martin is a normal New Yorker no matter how he looks. From the ability level, he is actually a level 4? This time the problem is big. Another guy who was incomprehensible and difficult to deal with came out. Fury casually played with a communication device in his hand and looked down from time to time. His biggest trump card now is Captain Marvel. This is a terrifying character of level sub-godfather, a powerful hero who can cross the universe with his body. I will conduct some research, but I don't need your leadership, just because I am very interested in these mechanical life. Really want to know how he did it. Directly broke the life code between life and death. Tony blew his whistle and looked at the shape-shifting King Kong on the screen with very bright eyes. And at this moment, at dawn, many dusty figures have reached the surface of the sea, looking at the prosperous New York in the distance. The leading old man had gray hair and a cold face. At this moment, he gave a sneer and said, "Our brotherhood is about to usher in a strong backbone. For this action, Magneto is bound to win. Once it is confirmed that Martin is mutant, he will desperately pull him into brotherhood and train him as the next leader. Experience and leadership ability is flawed and can be cultivated slowly, but the gap in ability cannot be changed by the day after tomorrow. The mutant group is too apt to eat. It is dragons or worms. It is often determined at the moment of the awakening X gene. This boundary between the upper and lower levels, as early as 1,000,000 years ago, the cosmic gods came to the Earth to carry out life on the species on the Earth. When experimenting, it was already doomed. Magneto took his army to look at New York City and quickly attracted the attention of the local department. A large number of troops were deployed immediately, and they were also specially equipped with special firearms and bullets to face Magneto far away. Magneto smiled contemptuously, ignored it, and left the army here, making it clear that he was deterring. He himself took a few people and walked into New York swaggeringly. This kind of contempt for everything made Fury's face pale. But no one dared to move. Everyone just watched from a distance, very nervous, and at the same time notified Professor X, urging Professor X to come forward to stop Magneto. "Eric, you violated our agreement." Fury's voice came from an amplifier. As if Magneto didn't hear it, he flew up to the sky and stretched out his hand. The countless people below were immediately under tremendous pressure and fell to the ground in embarrassment. For Magneto, which controls one of the 4 forces of the universe, the human magnetic field is also a kind of magnetic field. He is Magneto, not the King of Iron. Soon, Magneto quickly flew to Martin's residence, a small, unremarkable-looking car repair shop, surrounded by some car parts. "Child, come home with me." Magneto stood high, looked down, stretched out his hand and flicked it gently, and the heavy iron door slowly opened. Megatron scanned the red eyeballs, then connected to the local internet in an instant, and immediately knew who Magneto was. With a grinning, raised his hand. There was a powerful hand cannon assembled, and powerful beams of energy gathered. This was enough to penetrate the energy cannon in New York City, and it was about to explode. "Don't be so irritable, Megatron. This old guy is not easy to deal with, and his ability restrains you." Through the light curtain in his mind, Martin saw that the 10 million degrees of energy in Megatron's body was rapidly diminishing, and all of them were thrown into this energy cannon. He immediately shook his head, stopped him, and lazily moved from. He got up on the bed, rubbed his eyes, and stood up in his pajamas. "Very well, boy, it seems that you are already enlightened." Magneto was very satisfied. First, he looked at Megatron with surprise and squinting eyes, but more of them stared directly at Martin. As he landed, he came directly to Martin and stretched out his hand to him. "Martin, you are born on our side, Brotherhood welcomes you to join." Magneto is joyful in his heart. The excitement of finally finding a fourth-level mutant after getting older is hard for outsiders to appreciate. Martin scratched his head irritably, then looked at the army that was constantly gathering, a little helpless. "Eric, I'm not interested in any brotherhood at all." As he said, Martin pointed to his head again. "Look, Professor X also told me to ignore your invitation. He said that your actions are too radical and it is not a good thing. He said he will be there soon." Magneto was not angry at all. There was still joy on his face, but there was a touch of majesty in his eyes. He is a domineering leader and does not need others to reject him. "Very well, boy, you have your own firm will, which is the most necessary quality for a leader, but again, you are too young to know that there are many forces in the world that you cannot resist, but it's okay, I will tell you the experience you lack." Magneto smiled, as if he was teaching his offspring. He raised his hand to put his hand on Martin's shoulder. The powerful magnetic force broke out and restrained Martin. He wanted to bring Martin with him before the old fellow from Professor X came. "Go. Take it to the steel island he built in the Atlantic Ocean, where Brotherhood's base camp is. As for being resisted, it doesn't matter, the more Martin resists, the more excited he is, just to make Martin, a young man, realize the huge gap in strength." Megatron's eyes burst with bleeding light, and his face was savage, and an energy cannon was about to blast out. But Magneto didn't even look at him. He lifted a finger and Megatron's arm was raised abruptly to the sky. The terrible bombardment lifted the ceiling on the spot and flew into the depths of the universe. "Your ability is very powerful. This is a treasure given to you by God, but it is a pity that you are facing me." Magneto was very confident, with a strong majesty on his face, and was about to take Martin away. But Martin shrugged helplessly, his face showing deep helplessness. "Eric, I won't go with you, you don't have what I need in your hand," and a powerful force surged out. Martin raised his hand, grabbed Eric's wrist, took out a weird weapon from nowhere, and said lightly, "You are not as strong as you thought, and I am not as strong as I thought. Weak." Dip. Congratulations to the host for reaching a planetary level of prestige. The prestige has reverberated through a planet of life. The prestige draw will be awarded once. Please proceed to the prestige draw as soon as possible. Congratulations to the host for successfully obtaining the Cybertron relic magnetic gloves. Magnetic gloves. Martin's heart was shaken and joyful, but on the surface he looked calm. Magnetic glove. Cybertron's sacred object, from the classic anime, shape-shifting King Kong leader's proof. As long as you wear this glove, you can easily control the magnetic field. Although the magnetic glove is only a second-level Cybertron holy artifact, it is not among the top 10 artifacts, but it is still strong enough, and it is also a holy artifact for the magnetic field. Martin grabbed Magneto's wrist, and at the same time stretched out the other hand that was already wearing gloves, and said lightly, "Eric, sometimes your arrogance is more noticeable than your strength, and it will also be your failure. The root cause." The magnetic control ability of the magnetic glove is activated. Magneto's expression was still inattentive, but at this moment, he suddenly changed. He felt that the magnetic field that should have been firmly controlled by him, suddenly had a brand new control force. What's worse is that this kind of magnetic force is not under your control. "Boy, what did you do?" Magneto's face changed completely, and he looked at Martin in shock, and finally his eyes fell on the weird glove in Martin's hand. "This is a sacred object I made, a magnetic glove, a treasure that specializes in manipulating magnetic fields, Eric. You ask for it." Martin shook his head and clenched a fist. In an instant, Martin perceived countless magnetic fields, and he clearly realized that he had the authority to manipulate these magnetic fields, and he could rely on this magnetic glove if he wanted to become the second Magneto. "No one can compete with me on the magnetic field." Magneto snorted coldly. Although his heart was shocked, his face was cold, and he roared. The powerful magnetic control ability broke out. Since he took charge of one of the 4 powers of the universe, he has never lost on magnetism. This is the confidence of the strong. But the next moment, his face immediately showed amazement. He noticed that the magnetism sent from Martin was really out of his control, and there was a very strong repulsion of his control. It seemed that the magnetic control authority of this magnetism was not in his control. Down. It's a holy thing that I control anyway. Eric, you're careless. Martin laughed blankly. The real Cybertron civilization is not as weak as it was shown in previous movies, and the real shape-shifting King Kong will not be as weak as the movie version. For example, a few armor-piercing bullets can defeat Megatron and Optimus Prime. Kind of leader-level King Kong. In the real shape-shifting King Kong, receiving the laser cannon with bare hands is a normal operation. The energy weapon blasted the leader King Kong, and even a small depression could not be punched out. One can imagine how powerful their bodies are. Magneto, which is confined to a life planet on the Earth, definitely does not know how terrible Cybertron will be. The Decepticon Legion, which doesn't even have half of the conventional combat power of Cybertron, is capable of ravaging the entire universe. If this is coupled with the King Kong of the 13 Apostles, which surpasses the leader King Kong such as Megatron and Optimus Prime, combined with the top 10 artifacts and a large number of other sacred objects, the power that erupts will be even more shocking. According to the performance of the comics in the previous life, the 13 masters and apprentices were made for Yuanshi Tianjun, one of the two ancestors of the shape-shifting King Kong, each of which is a level single universe. The sacred objects they created are at least a powerful weapon of the level single universe, which can resist Magneto's magnetic power. It is normal. There was another buzzing. Martin punched it and smashed Magneto out of the garage. Megatron, don't you want a troop of your own? To solve this guy, I will give you 1,000,000 troops to form a Decepticon Legion. Martin said lightly, then turned around and went to wash. When I first got up, his hair was messy, which made Martin, who had always paid attention to his own image, made it very uncomfortable. Megatron's eyes lit up. Definitely, great creator, I will carry out your will. He stepped out, the ground made a tremor, quickly came to the outside world, raised his hand, countless signals were sent, and the millions of shape-shifting King Kong around him immediately received the order and swarmed. With an order, millions of war weapons were gathered. This tyrannical ability makes every leader of the big forces who watch the battle through satellites feel dizzy for a while. And this shape-shifting King Kong is a natural killing machine. With their powerful computing power, coupled with a combat system, they can calculate the optimal combat mode in an instant. Whether it is heads-to-head combat or legionary warfare, there is nothing they can't do. Martin, do you want to rely on this group of scrap iron to fight me? Magneto had a gray head and face, and flew directly into the sky. His hair was scattered, and he roared. Scrap? Eric, you will be the Scrap King soon. Megatron's killing intent increased sharply, and he waved his hand. The countless shape-shifting King Kong immediately launched a fierce attack on Magneto. It swarmed like a tide, overwhelming the sky, as if covering the whole world. What's more terrifying is that they no longer fight melee like killing Abomination, but directly use various energy weapons, and blast out terrifying energy cannons in the muzzles that light up. In this scene, like the end of the world, all the terrifying attacks hit Magneto. Magneto looked cold, raised his hand, and pulled the countless shape-shifting diamonds to his side, forcing them to protect themselves. The shape-shifting diamond's self-contained life magnetic field and special body have a certain degree of resistance to his magnetic manipulation. Lee, unexpectedly caused a slight delay in his control. At this moment, Megatron's eyes were fierce, completely ignoring the shape-shifting King Kong controlled by Magneto, and the moment he showed a cruel smile, he gave the order to fire. Boom boom boom. Endless artillery fire came from all directions, and it hit the most central Magneto. This is an energy weapon that surpasses the current Earth in an era. The terrible attack of the energy cannon is not understandable by today's people on Earth. After all, Chitauri has not yet arrived and has not been defeated. The Earth's science and technology tree is still climbing on its own. Can't usher in a leap with the legacy of aliens. The terrible light illuminates the night sky, brighter than the slowly rising sun. The most central figure was also overwhelmed by this endless cannon fodder. Shape-shifting King Kong's two great ancestors Yuanshi Tianjun and the Great Universe are absolutely multi-level universe, because the original book clearly stated that the two ancestors spent the main time in multi-universe, so they are equivalent to Marvel's 5 great creations in terms of status. World gods, they are stronger than Galactus in strength, approximately equal to the 2 creation gods of eternity and death, and weaker than the annihilation of super-universe level and the infinity that can follow annihilation. Close black lens bracket. Endless rays of light soared into the sky, and the terrible energy concentration fire shocked the whole world. The terrible aftermath that deliberately guided the power to the sky just swept across the Earth, and closely monitored the many satellites here in space. In an instant it became a large piece of space junk. Damn it. Mobilize new satellites right away. Where are the technicians? Monitor New York City for me. No matter what method you use, I want to see the guy named Martin with my own eyes. It's terrible, this power. I originally thought he could only create war machine, but now it seems he is clearly creating a civilization. Is this level 4 in particular? Level 4 can create a group of life forms so perfect and powerful intelligent life? Countless leaders of great powers watched this scene and were completely shaken. They madly transmitted all kinds of files. No one knew better than them. If there were such a terrifying intelligent civilization on the Earth, how huge amounts would it be for the situation on the Earth? Of shock. Thousands of years of conflict between mutant, inhumans, and ordinary people have caused many people to be devastated. After a lot of conflicts and negotiations, the fragile stability of today is finally formed. The Inhumans is the leader of the level Godfather, the Black Bat King. Under the leadership, settled in the moon, mutant, under the leadership of Professor X and Magneto, confronted each other to maintain a balance. Ordinary people researched and developed technology, and those with super ability also have the ability to contain mutant. That's it. I haven't counted the group of Atlantis undersea people, and those alien spaces that border the Earth. For example, on the Kunlun Mountains in East Asia, there is a holy land, Kunlun, where a group of macho men practice qi are stationed. The previous generation of Kunlun Iron Fist, back then, was so brutal that it blasted the Phoenix that had just arrived on Earth from the universe with one punch. That's why Phoenix Force reluctantly boarded mutant Chin Gray. Otherwise, at that time, the Earth will face a huge crisis of being slaughtered by Phoenix Force. One punch defeated the Phoenix Force, which was still the strength of the level Godfather, and defeated the Phoenix Force of this universe with one stroke. What an outrageous strength was that! Although the previous generation of Iron Fist exhausted all of its strength and died after hitting this punch, no new Iron Fist heir has been born until today. But this is still terrible, ridiculous. Okay. Many ancient forces have recorded this event. But now, if there is an extra group of shapeshifting King Kong whose life forms are much higher than ordinary people, what will this world be like? Is he an Omega mutant? Fury's face was pale, and he slammed a fist on the table, his heart beating wildly. Ordinary people think that Professor X and Magneto are already the strongest of mutant, but he knows that the strongest is the gentle-looking Dr. Chin who burst out to smash the stars and become a living, Omega class. The so-called Omega means immortal life and unlimited potential. If Martin is really an Omega mutant, then level 4 is definitely not the upper limit of potential, and it is also a level sub-Godfather, let alone a level sub-Godfather. Then they had to overthrow all the plans they made overnight, and they had to reconsider their attitude towards Martin. Level sub-Godfather, a monster that smashed the stars with a punch. He felt a tingling scalp when he thought of another fierce man with an uncertain attitude and an uncertain stand on the Earth. Fury looked at the dawn outside the window with his hands behind his back. His face was extremely solemn. In his hands he held a large number of secret records on this planet and new information that many people did not know, such as Kamar Taj, Atlantis and Kunlun Mountain. He didn't know much about the Great Escape Forces, but he did. This world is so dangerous, it will explode like a gunpowder barrel if you are not careful. Especially Martin, who directly creates the terrifying potential of a complete life, creates the terrible ability of a smart civilization with bare hands. Just think about it, there is a sense of suffocation like falling into an ice cave. An independent intelligent civilization, creativity, intelligence, and potential are simply difficult to evaluate. He took a deep breath and faintly felt that the situation was a bit out of control. He needed the help of a strong external force, and Captain Marvel of level sub-Godfather alone was not enough. Thinking about this, he directly picked up the phone and dialed the number of the ancient Eastern Kingdom's Divine Spear Bureau. Zheng Xian, yes, it's me. You must know what happened here in New York. The dispute between the shield and the spear has come to an end. The Brotherhood, which is separated into a shield and a spear, cannot be reorganized, but the conflict between the ancestors should not become the obstacle between you and me. I need to cooperate with you, just like the shield and spear that created the fixed star armor for Da Vinci 600 years ago to fight against the cosmic gods. After a long time, Fury slowly put down the phone, the tight look on his face slightly relaxed. The shield is in the west, the spear is in the east, is an old saying that has been circulated for more than 1,000 years. It originated from the disbandment of the Hidden Earth Guardian Organization, Holy Shield Brotherhood, and the power split into two. The power of the spear was brought to the east by Zhang Heng, and the Shen Spear Bureau was established. At that time, the east was in the Eastern Han Dynasty. The power of the shield remained in the west, which is today's shield. Except for the generation 600 years ago, in order to deal with the attack of the descendants of the cosmic gods, the conflicts and forces worked together, and all the strength and resources were used to build a battle armor for Da Vinci, allowing Da Vinci to successfully enter the sun and fight with the opponent. After killing and eliminating the crisis of extinction, spear and shield never cooperated anymore, and the differences between the concepts of the two sides were too great. I hope the situation will not continue to collapse. Fury carried his hands behind his back, his heart heavy. The common predecessor of the Holy Shield Brotherhood, Shield and the Spear Bureau, the oldest guardian organization of the Earth, was established 4,600 years ago. The original purpose was to fight against the Brooder Zerg who came from the depths of the universe, mutant boss Apocalypse at that time. He was just a small cadre of this organization. Later, Galileo, Zhang Heng, Newton, Leonardo da Vinci, etc., were all members of the Brotherhood of the Holy Shield. In a parallel universe, Tony's father Howard Stark was also a Holy Shield member of Shield Brotherhood. Close black lens bracket.